To give you a little bit of background, I'm one of the older fossils of fandom, Jeremy Bentham. I helped to start the Appreciation Society back in 1976. One of the first things we did with a little magazine called TARDIS in those days was have a survey of, to find out who was the most popular villain, most popular Doctor, most popular companion. And we got our most popular companion, and she was voted by an almost unanimous decision into first place, with a very long distance between that and second place. Interestingly enough, a few years ago, Marvel did exactly the same exercise again on a much bigger basis, and despite there having been close on nearly a dozen extra companions in those intervening 20 years, the same person rocketed straight to the top of the charts and has always been there, which is why it's as good a reason as ever to give a superb welcome to someone who hasn't aged a day in the last 22 years, Elisabeth Sladen.
We'll be friends, all of us, when we leave. Whoops, that's a hard one.
Did you recognise that music?
Sort of. It's in my past, isn't it, like most things are. My past sort of flashes before my eyes. Was it something I was in, a programme?
Or have some mothers had some input to it?
Oh, some mothers do have them, right, yes.
It was indirectly through that you got the Doctor Who, wasn't it?
Well, I was asked to, I'd only been living in London for about a year, and normally your agent sends you up for things, and I was actually asked for by Michael Mills, the producer, which was actually quite nice. I'm a bit low here, excuse me. Is that better? Oh, that's better. Is that all right for you, Jeremy?
Well, just look up.
Well, I usually have to look up to everyone. Is that all right, really?
Well, you need a footstool.
No, I'm all right. And I was told to go and see Michael Mills because they needed someone to play the wife, Betty, of Michael Crawford's character, and I was given a scenario and I read a scene, and he was very nice, and anyway, I didn't get it. It came down in the end to Michelle Detrice and me, and you know the story, Michelle Detrice got it, so I sort of had a consolation prize. They said, well, Liz, would you like to be in one of the episodes? So I'm not proud. I said, yes, I'd love to. But if I had actually done the series of Some Mothers Do Have Them, I wouldn't have been in Doctor Who, because that was the next thing I was offered.
I'm quite staggered when you look at how Michelle Detrice played her role, as in very wet and weedy. Could you have done wet and weedy?
It was a very difficult thing to do, to play the other half of Michael Crawford, really, because he was so out on his own, wasn't he? I think the people in that series, the ones that played it in a more naturalistic way, still, if you play the scene, the comedy will come out. It's rather like a George Formby film, isn't it? If everyone tries to be George Formby, it's not funny. You can only have one George Formby. You know, it just won't accommodate anyone else. And I think if you play the scene, if you play the reality, but are aware where the laughs are, it comes over better. I mean, I was so absolutely petrified on mine. I played it so real, I just mumbled. I remember Michael Crawford saying to me, well, Liz, darling, if I can't hear you, the audience won't be able to. And I thought, well, you've got mics, haven't you? I thought this was television. But anyway.
Do you find television working was a lot different to where you'd started?
I did 10 years in rep before I came to Doctor Who. I'd done some television. I'd been in Coronation Street as Len Fairclough's new girlfriend. Does anyone remember that? Anita Reynolds of the Flying Horse. I think the only thing Pat Phoenix ever said to me, at that time we had all these shiny white shoes, and she was going out with Alan Browning at the time. She was very proprietorial, anyone knew. And it really was the days where you didn't sit in Albert Tatlock's chair. I mean, they weren't nasty, but you just knew your place. And the only thing she ever said to me was, oh, Anita Chuck, how do you keep your shoes so white? Well, I thought, I'm not favoured here, am I?
So were you still using the regional accent at that point?
Yes, I was playing Northern. What's so lovely about Doctor Who or any television series is you learn to treat the camera as a friend and really sort of ignore it. If you just do one telly, it's very difficult to get the level of it if you've done a lot of theatre. Because if you're on stage, you're thinking of Mrs. Doodah, who's paid her money at the back there, and you don't just turn and say something, you turn and say something. Everything is just rather enlarged. You can take it down once the audience know what is going on, but it's got to be bigger. And I mean, that isn't just the voice, it's the whole body. It's like a ballet dancer, you use your whole body. And you have to learn in television to minimise, and yet to still make it definite, to still have definition, So you've still got the shape of your character, but maybe you could do something, just a nail or something that maybe only the first 2 rows would see if you did it on stage. There's all sorts of things like that. And also, you know, you really don't need to project. You also have to learn very quickly where your marks are on the floor for television, because you might be being wonderful, and if you're not on that cross there, the camera can't see you, because they have their positions. I remember once Tommy and I don't know what the episode was, and we were meant to come running down one of those endless corridors. Before we started off, Ian always used to say, "Out of breath, Sladen, OOB." We'd stand there panting, we used to laugh, and then run on. And Tom on the door was supposed to, it was meant to be automatic. You pressed the button and the door came back, but of course there was a little man there juddering it back. And he wasn't really on the ball that day. And we were running along the corridor, and we saw this door come up, and it just wasn't moving. So Tom just went, whack, and it went that way like a garage door. And we all came in posted like a letter. And we just thought we were the bee's knees, because we didn't stop. We thought, God, aren't we professional? And we carried on doing the scene, and then I don't know who was directing. We finished the scene, and then someone said, "Yes, that was awfully good, the 3 of you, but we just couldn't see you. You weren't on camera." And Tom was, so you've got to be very precise, much more, so you can wander around a bit on stage a bit more. You can take it in your head to actually do different things, and, you know, the other actors have to keep their eye on you. You have to roughly follow the parameter of what you've blocked. But it is very nice to experiment, and you can't really do that on television, or if you do, it's quite frowned upon, and rightly so, because it puts the fear of God into everyone. You think, what's he doing over there? It should be over there.
Did Barry Letts tell you what he'd actually seen you in before that decided that you were a possible shortlist for?
No, I think Barry Letts was just desperate to find a Sarah Jane. The story goes, I mean, I knew Barry Letts. He didn't know me. I knew Barry Letts as an actor. I mean, knew him from the box. I'd seen him in things, and I thought he's a wonderful actor. And then he was the producer, wasn't he,
That's
of
right.
the 6 o'clock slot on a Sunday. Yeah?
Well, that came afterwards.
Did it?
Yeah.
It's so good, Jeremy. He was really desperate for someone, because the story is that they had actually had another girl. Whether they called her Sarah Jane or not, I don't know. Have any of you heard this story? Oh,
No, you
good.
haven't.
Oh, I've got one that you haven't heard. I have a habit of repeating myself, you see, because I only have so many stories unless I start to lie. And I wouldn't do that to you. So she was not like me at all. John's doctor, as I'm sure you're all aware, you know his character really so much better than I do. His was the gentleman doctor, you know, the cloak around the chick, the protective doctor. Well, for a doctor to do that, you have to be a certain size, you have to look a certain way. And I think this girl was quite big, which rather put John out of it. And they had started to do some filming. I mean, she was, I don't know who it was, and I'm not saying. She was quite a large lady, and it really didn't work. You have to have a match. It's like you can have the most wonderful, not that I'm comparing Doctor Who to Romeo and Juliet, but because you know they're a team. Romeo and Juliet, they can be the most wonderful actors, but if they don't pair, if they don't match, that indefinable thing doesn't happen. And you don't know why. You think, aren't they good? But it just isn't happening. And you have to match, and that has got to do a lot with physical shape, especially in something, you know, like Doctor Who. So she was very nicely let go. I mean, she got paid and whatever. So they were really running very close to shooting days, and they hadn't got a Sarah Jane. And I had done 2 Z cars. Normally you have a big gap in between something like one episode of The Bill and another episode of The Bill, because, you know, people would recognize you. And I had actually done 2 Z cars fairly close together. In one, I had played a 15-year-old Northamptonshire girl, very shy, very, not retarded, but very backward, yeah? And then, literally, a month or so later, I had played a late 20s, early 30s Liverpool scrubber. You know, ladders in their tights. God, I loved it. Oh, loved it. I said, can I rip it a bit more? Can I look a bit more scruffy? Because, you know, normally you have to, you're always getting tweaked. And here I could have. So I'd done those 2 parts, and Ron Craddock was very nice to me about both characters. And the story goes that Barry Letts literally was yelling along the corridors of Threshold House saying, who can I see? I can't find my Sarah Jane. And Ron Craddock said, well, have you heard of Miss Sladen? And Barry Letts said, no, who's she? So he said, well, see her. I think she would be very good. And what happened this time was that John said, look, I must be allowed not to have the final say, but to have a say in who is going to be my companion. And he did. And I got the job.
Did you know it was going to be a permanent thing?
No,
as
I
opposed
didn't.
to just a guest role in one of the
No, I was
serials?
doing an advert for Cointreau the night before. And those were the days when they actually gave you the real thing. So, 9 in the morning, you're around this dinner table. Well, we lost the leading man. Do you remember the French man? Cointreau. We lost him at 3 o'clock. He had to go lie down. and Cointreau is white. You know, you could have had water. Anyway, I came in. Those are the days you used to get overtime. And I came in really late, and there was a little message by the phone, go see Barry Letts the next morning for a character in Doctor Who. So I thought it was just maybe 1 episode. If I was lucky, it would be 4. So I tootled along to Threshold House, and I read the script, and he said, well, no, I read the scene with him. And it did, I could, sometimes it comes off the page to you, and it did. And it was lovely. And he said, oh, well, would you come to North Acton rehearsal room where John Pertwee's rehearsing, and would you like to meet him? I thought, well, this is very thorough, you know, just for a part in Doctor Who. So I said, well, yes, and he said, I'll get another actor in to read with you so I can watch, because he was doing the other part with me. And he got... who since played the baddie in the radios, John and I did, Stephen Thorne.
Stephen Thorne.
Stephen, God, your life, you know, comes full circle. Incredible. So Stephen Thorne had to sit there as the baddie, and the only way you knew he was the baddie was at the end of the scene his tongue came out, and it was a demon tongue or something. But Stephen was sitting there flicking his tongue. And I remember as Sarah, I had to climb through the window. So, you know, you're doing all these things like opening the window, looking up, climbing through. You've got the script in one hand. It's not terribly easy. But we said goodbye to Stephen, and he said, well, John would like to meet you. So I said, oh, lovely. And my first recollection of dear John is, I mean, you know, he is, I don't know which words to use, really, very, you couldn't miss him, could you?
He generally had the charisma, the grandeur.
Well, at that time, John had this denim jacket, and I kid you not, you could hardly see the denim. It was covered in badges. Absolutely covered. So this sort of white-haired, sparkly thing came through the door. And he had, I swear, he had a girl on either arm. He was nervous. He told me later. He had the PA and the AFM. He said, oh, darlings, come, got to meet this new girl. Come down with me. So they trolled to the door together, and John was talking to me. Hello, hi, I'm John Pertwee. I said, I know. Oh, dear. And the story is, I don't know, Barry Letts tells the story, and John used to, I don't remember. Barry went behind me, and he went like that to John, meaning, she's read fine for me. If you like the look of her, we're fine. And then the story is, Barry came in front to talk to me again. John went behind, well, she looks all right, mate. If you think she's all right, yes. So John said, very nice to have met you. I hope to see you again. I said, yes, I look forward to that. And he tootled off, and then Barry offered me the part, and I was really gobsmacked. I really was. And I accepted there and then. I rushed home, phoned the agent, and he said, my God, you didn't say yes, did you?
We haven't discussed your fee yet.
That's right. He said, I said, yes, I have. He said, God, he said, couldn't you have let me talk money first? So that's why I was on such a bad deal.
You're still eating those
For the
bags
second
of
series,
cake.
I think I got 5 pound rights. I'm not joking.
Did you, was it suggested to you what you should wear for your press call? Because you did manage to make the front page of the Daily Mail and a number of the other tabloids.
Do you know, that just wasn't me, those denim shorts.
Little tiny micro mini.
They were mine. I don't know why I wore it.
I can think of 3 reasons.
Well, 3? I thought I was from this planet. I don't know, because I actually don't ever feel comfortable with the press. I mean, I used to have a really hard time. Barry was awfully good to me when we were doing, I'll go back, I will answer your question, Jeremy. When we would do photographs, we would record at 7:30 at night. When I left later on, they did rehearse record. But we would record at 7:30 at night, rather like a play. You go through the whole thing. So you sort of pace yourself. You know, you're doing one scene, you've got rollers in your hair. It's all right till 7:30, and then you're ready to go. And the guys used to come down from BBC Publicity, and they would take stills so that they could publicise the series, publish things. And I used to hate it so much because they'd say, Liz, can you creep round that bush and look out the doctor? And that was the antithesis of everything going on in my mind at the time, when I really didn't want to think of posing, because I was going on in camera to be Sarah Jane in a minute. I mean, I don't mean to sound pretentious or that, but, you know, you have to, you think your own way through it. And I didn't want a photo to be taken and posing, because it was so cod, it was so alien to how you're trying to be natural. And Barry used to let me skive off, and he said, go on, no, they won't be gone in a minute. And he said, I don't think Liz is ready yet. Oh, he was lovely, so I didn't get many shots, I suppose. He was lovely to me. Now, going back to what you said, what was the question? I will answer.
Basically, when you had to first meet the press, this big mass on
God, yes. Well, you see, Jim Atchison, I mean, that wasn't Sarah at all, what I wore, but they were my clothes. I don't know why. Someone must have said something. Someone must have said something. And I remember putting these things on, getting made up, and John had his cloak on. And, I mean, I really didn't know. I hadn't recorded with John at the time. I'm not leaving, don't worry. I hadn't recorded with John at the time. And John walked out to the press. And I walked behind him like this. He said, William, get out, go, get out, get out. I said, no, no. I was walking behind. And he said, oh, Liz, come on, you've got to be stupid. And my nerve just let me. God knows why I put those, whatever they were, hot pants on or something. And I really, really don't know.
It's very uncomfortable trying to sit on one of those concrete pillars outside Television Centre.
Well, it looks like, yes. I was not comfortable with the press. I had no dealings with the press, and I didn't. I got better at it though.
But was it quite startling to suddenly find yourself plastered across the nations? Because it was such a big, it was a really big news story, wasn't it? The new companion being cast for Doctor Who.
I know. I don't think I realised exactly how popular the series was, or I mean, it wasn't until I left and went to America to do conventions that I just realised how the programme had endeared itself and how loyal fans were and how much they thought of the characters. And not how famous you were, but because you weren't, but just how noted you were. It was quite an eye-opener. I mean, we used to work a hell of a schedule. We used to work about 9 months of the year, and it was top to 10. I actually did 2 series sandwiched together. We would be shooting out of order. I mean, you know, it comes down to money in the end. It really does. You just were so engrossed. It was like your family. But you left it at the rehearsals room and you went home to your own family. I mean, I met Tom in Regent Street once. We couldn't cope. What's the doctor doing in Regent Street? Oh, come for a Guinness. Oh, no, I've got to go home, Tom. Oh. I mean, it's really strange to see someone out of the environment, and yet you were so close in that environment. Maybe that's why it worked. I don't know.
Was it a difficult transition, moving from having spent a whole year with John to suddenly being told, here's this new actor that's coming along that's going to...
I was very aware of that, and I mean, everyone had their own baggage at the time. There was Tom taking over a very well-known role, having to make it his own. John, all the doctors, you know, are very popular in their own right. And I remember going down, I was working with John in the studio, and then after the studio I was down with Tom to do Robot. And I was really, I was watching Tom and Ian Marter, and I thought, God, they've got a relationship going already, I'm left out. I was watching them, and I was really tired after Spiders, and I thought, I loved what Tom was doing. I was watching him, and I thought, well, if you're going to actually make something work, it's no good. We're going to be working together for a long time. It's got to come naturally. So I just felt I hung around a bit on, I felt it was on the periphery, and we just sort of gelled without any pushing or shoving or anything. Oh my God, you know, I'm the doctor, you're the companion, we must get on. Thank God we did get on. But I was very aware, and he needed his space as well. I mean, he would be a lot in the company of James Atchison. James gave him, he gave me my character of Sarah in a way other than Barry, by the clothes, and I know he helped Tom enormously. And they would be together.
And was it a question that clothes made the character? Because you wore some quite spectacular outfits in the course of your 3 years. Were the ones
yes, I started off very staid, didn't I, and proper.
Trouser suits and business outfits.
Yes, well that was right, I think. And then as it got on, the series, we went into space more, didn't we? It wasn't on Earth, we went into space. And I just felt that anyone here who travels around with a guy with 2 hearts in a TARDIS, I mean, you could find anything in that TARDIS. I didn't want to come out dressed as something in Marks and Spencer that anyone could buy. I felt it had to be, you know, I would have liked it to be a little bit more, well, I suppose it was okay, yes it was, I was happy with it. I liked the outfits. I remember once though, I think it was on Peladon. I had my hair very short then, it was quite boyish, and I had
Didn't John Pertwee complain about that?
leather jacket. The sound man everyone had a go at me about that outfit. I told him to stick to his boom. Really? I thought, John, you get your sound right. Leave the costume to me. And Barbara did that. Not Barbara, little Barbara, the other Barbara.
Barbara Lane?
No, not Barbara Lane,
Barbara
Kidd. And we were in a lot of dark corridors, weren't we, down on Peladon? And I got this note, very quietly in my ear, from Chris Doyley John. Liz, do you think you can go and wear a bra? I said, well, I don't really need one. He said, that's the problem. You look like a boy. We can't see the definition, which is you. I thought, well, John's a bit taller than me. Why not?
White hair.
But I was thinner than I am now. So I had to go and do that. And I do know that Maloney, do you know, they think actors don't overhear, or maybe they think girl actors don't overhear. I don't know. There was an area sometimes where I felt that I was taken for Sarah. Sometimes. I remember one particular director coming along and I was moved like a Dalek. I thought, well, next time you can ask me. You know, I don't suppose they meant it, but, you know, there was just that little area I was quite aware of.
Directors like Lenny May, you know,
oh, no, not lovely Lenny.
Etc.
Come along, mother, let's get you in the bog house. That would be the throne, you know. Sit on the bog, mum. Lovely. Now, where was that taking you?
Costumes, clothes.
Yes.
Choice of.
Go back a bit more.
Did you choose them?
Oh, David Maloney. Right. What did I wear before I did Planet of Evil?
That was when you were in Scotland.
Right. Well, David thought I had to look more feminine, I remember. And David can't whisper, so I heard all this. And I thought, well, I don't want to look like Katie, you know. And that was the nearest they actually got me to look a bit. I thought, you know, the little bodice with the bit of lace and, you know, wobbling all over the place. In the tight jeans, yeah. I thought, well, we'll go for it for once. It's a nice change, but I shall have to be a bit careful of that.
Did you try to have any input yourself to what you wanted to wear? Stuff
Yeah.
you felt you were comfortable in?
We'd go out shopping. I'd meet the costume designer, and we'd troll along West Kent and have a look, and I'd say, well, look, there were certain logistics you had to take into in the script, like if Sarah had to have a rip in one of her clothes, or something had to catch on something, you know, if the script, then you had to have a jacket. If something Sarah leaves her jacket, obviously. But the costume designer would say, how do you feel? What do you think? I'd say, well, this. And he'd say, well, look, this is what I've thought. And we would adapt. Or we'd see something that was even better. Sometimes it was made for me. Barbie Lane was very fond of making things. She was wonderful, Barbie Lane. She was so sweet. Tom used to say I could eat her for breakfast. She was knee-high to a gnat. Tom, can you come and have a costume on? Barbara, anything for you. He was wonderful. He was so lovely. Anyway, we were very fortunate because we actually had people, costume designers particularly, working on the programme who adored the programme. I don't think we ever really had one who were, oh God, I've been put on Doctor Who, and that makes all the difference.
And you get someone like a double Oscar winner like James Atchison doing your
well,
costumes
I know,
as well.
weren't we lucky? Did he do 2 or 3 of them? He did,
oh, at least about, yeah.
Did he do 3? It was wonderful, and he was such fun. They all were, and they just loved being on the programme. We would have wonderful actors, Bernard Archard, Peter Copley, and they'd say, oh, I'm so pleased to be on Doctor Who. Oh, I'm so thrilled. And they really were. They were wonderful. And they would enter into the spirit of it. There was one director, and she would like to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Now, something like Doctor Who, you must rehearse it so that you're technical and you know what you're doing. And then you have to wait for the day for the special effects to go wrong, you know, but you can only do so much. But if you rehearse something like Doctor Who, which is actually quite fragile, the plot lines will only take you so far. If you actually look into them very deeply, as Delia Marta, you open a can of beans, don't you? And where do you go with that? You think, my God, what can we do now? So there was an area where you knew you were pretending, and the line stopped there. And she would rehearse. And if you over-rehearse actors, they're actually very bad. They just get very tired, very boring. They start to be not interested. This was happening one day. And Bernard Archard came over to me and said, I'm being kept in after school today. Are you? And then he walked off again. So you had these wonderful light moments. And Tom used to say they would come from the next story, the costume or the makeup, and say, Tom, can we just have a fitting in lunch hour? And you go, oh, no, I can't possibly. I'm saving the universe. I'll come when I can. Oh, that was such a good wheeze. That was so good. No, I'm saving the... I'm sorry, I don't have the time. Everyone's depending on me here. And he said to me, Liz, we're so lucky, because at the time they were doing The Brothers at North Acton. Do any of you remember The Brothers?
With Colin Baker.
With Colin Baker, of course, my gosh. And he said, God, he said, we're saving the universe. Let's go and watch them. He said, look, all they can do is raise a gin and tonic every week. We used to look through the window at them, and then we used to run back to our little boat home. It was great fun. Can I pour you some water, Jeremy? I'll pour myself some as well.
Did anything really prepare you for the kind of public exposure, the public pressure that you got when you got the role on Doctor Who? Because it's totally unlike virtually any other role on television.
I shied away from it an awful lot. I could have done more, but actually, I mean, I suppose that's the time when you get a publicity agent. But I just, I never really... Whoops, Daisy. I never really...
First thing you noticed, you start getting truckloads of fan mail and things coming through for you.
Yeah, well, I think the Doctor's always got more. I got enough, and I used to answer it. They used to help me out in the office. But as I say, I didn't really see it as... I didn't see it from your side, or from where I'm sitting now, that this would ever happen when I was working on it. That was a job that I truly loved, and that I... It's wonderful to have a character that you think, God, that's mine, no one else... It's a lovely feeling. And she was. I'm very proprietorial about her, I really am. And I never really want to... Some things that I've done after Doctor Who and thought about, should I do that with Sarah Jane? I mean, some things I've liked, some I haven't, but I would never willingly let her down. I'm very fond of her. I love what she stands for. There are certain aspects to her and to the Doctor that I think are what goodness is about. I love it. But I didn't take on to the role. Doctors used to do quite a lot of publicising and go to things. I remember the one time Ian Marter and I, we would go to Longleat. Oh yes, we would do... But I didn't want to go to Blackpool, you see. I wanted a holiday. And
you and the other 500,000 people.
Well, it was the end of season, and we were all invited to Enterprises, as it was then. It's now worldwide, I think. It took us to this wonderful meal at the Garrick Club. There's, little Lizzie Sladen sitting at the Garrick Club.
They didn't allow women into the Garrick Club.
I wonder if someone can find out. I think I was the first woman to go in the Garrick Club. I know I was the first woman to go on an oil rig, but someone else says they were, but they weren't. It was me.
All right, what were you doing on an oil rig?
Oh, when I left Doctor Who, I did merry-go-round about Rex and North Sea, and I nearly came to a very sticky end in a chopper. I really did. Blackpool. I didn't want to go because I wanted my holes, and they invited my mum and dad from Liverpool to be special guests, so I had to go.
Loading me by.
Yeah.
What do you remember about it? Because it looked like such a huge event. I mean, the mayor and everybody was involved with it.
Well, thank God for Ian Marter, because Tom used to get whisked away from me quite a lot. He was the Doctor. And Ian and I, Ian had this wonderful sense of the ridiculous. He used to chortle. His shoulders would go up, and when he said, Slade, look at this load of crap. Oh, look at this. He said, who would have thought we would have been followed along Blackpool Prom by an orange on wheels? And I turned round, and there was this orange coming after us. We had this amazing meal. I sat next to the Lord Mayor, and he told me every detail of his operation.
Showed you the container afterwards.
Well, he also had to do a little speech with us because we had to do a little sketch on a podium before we switched the lights on. And he was quite in the swing of it by then, the Lord Mayor. We hardly got a look in. He just kept building his part up. Maloney was saying, we have to get him off. Because we were doing something Maloney was directing at the time. So he was with us. And also the costume designer helped me find something to wear. Because, you see, it's all right for the doctors. They can wear their outfits, that is just them.
Of course, Ian had his blazer as well.
Yes. Well, I would have clothes, but usually by the end of filming, I'd been shit at and shot at so much it wasn't worth looking at. So I didn't really have anything to put on, so I used to go out and try and get something. I do remember this one wonderful costume designer used to lend me Petula Clark's clothes. Downtown. Oh, it's wonderful. She's tiny, she really is. And I remember that we needed the sonic screwdriver. And Maloney said, oh, my God, I've left it back at the hotel. I'll go get it. No, Tom, it's all right. I'll go get it. We say, yes, sir, because directors like being called sir, as Tom will probably tell you this afternoon. And he took her back to the hotel. And he got the screwdriver and he got in the lift, and the lift broke down. And he said, I was standing there with this bloody thing in my hand saying, do something. The lift started. He said, I thought so too. And the lift started up again, and we did this switching on. I think the next year, Red Rum switched the lights on, so it rather puts you in your place.
How about the merchandising side? How did you feel about all of a sudden finding your face flopping out of Weetabix and Typhoo tea packets?
I didn't know anything about that. Oh, you know, I wouldn't normally go to the supermarket and buy something with Doctor Who. It wasn't in my vision. I wish I had. I might have got paid for something. And I might have been asked my permission. I don't know. I mean, it's a sore point at the moment because there's a lot of merchandise that is being sold. And it's being sold, you know, with the assistants on it. And the assistants are not even being issued with a contract. The BBC in good faith. And they do. It's a strange ball game, Doctor Who, because there's no one now really in charge of it. There's no one back at the BBC who actually heads it. Now, when someone... I agree. When someone like Nathan was in charge, Nathan could go round, you know, abroad anywhere and say, illegal, illegal, illegal. There's no one to look after us now. Now, what normally happens, I mean, I have friends at Worldwide, and they are really trying to... They say, haven't they contacted you yet? We've licensed them. Oh, no, they've contacted the doctors. They haven't contacted... Doctors haven't contacted the assistants. There's Slow Dazzle, there's MMG. I am getting nothing. I'm sick of being ripped off. And if you ask the other assistants, you know, well, Carrie John I was talking to the other day, she said, I was told I'm on this card in Smith's. She said, are you? I said, yes. Are you getting it? No, she said, no, why aren't we? It's really bad. So there's an awful lot now I'm not signing. I've got my own photographs. I'll sign anything but a blank cheque. I don't mind signing programs. You don't have to buy mine. Some of my money goes to the Meningitis Trust once I've covered my costs. But I'm not signing a load of stuff that other people are making. I don't mind people making money out of me, but fair dues, I want some as well. I think that's only right and proper.
Now, you're involved with the project now for an audio tape that's coming out.
Yes, Steve Wickham. Does anyone know Steve Wickham from Doctor
Appreciation
Who?
Society?
Yes, well, I did a tape with my husband, Brian Miller. We did a tape for circulation to the fans. I think that was a couple of years ago now. And the money, I don't know which charity that went to. And he said, would I do another one? So I said, well, yes, I'd be delighted. He said, well, Barry Letts said he'll write it. So I was even more delighted, because Barry knows Sarah so well. I would not even have to look at it. I'd say I'd do it. I'd do anything that he wrote. I really would. Pardon me. So anyway, I get the script from Barry Letts, and it took me a while when I read it to work it out. It is actually Sarah getting a telephone call, talking to a woman who is actually herself 146 years old, and it's incredible. It really is. And there's some, you see, I'm not very technical, and it was only after I left I even knew what TARDIS meant. You know, I didn't bother. I didn't think Sarah had to bother herself with that. So you know, I don't. I mean, a tin opener is about my level. I'm not interested in that side. And there is something mentioned in it that you would probably know, and I don't have the script with me, where the Doctor has told Sarah, parallax view, no, something, and therefore she should know that this could happen. So it is evidently something that can happen, but the Doctor, as this is wont, only explained half of it to Sarah, so she didn't get it.
Now, one thing a lot of people I know are interested in hearing about is what's the future of Doctor Who on radio? Do you know?
I'll be the last person to know, wouldn't I? I'm always the last person to know anything. I don't know, I would imagine. I loved doing the radios with John. They were an absolute joy, and Nick. It really... I don't know, I hope you enjoyed them. It really... I don't know, I hope you enjoyed them. It just gelled again. It was great. It was really wonderful. I think Phil Clark, who produced ours, was approached with a new Doctor in mind. And he said, to my understanding, well, not my sympathies, I was with John. That's my time. I would rather just leave it as that. So I don't know if anyone else is taking it over or if someone else has been approached, but, you know, the field is open. I certainly haven't been approached. But I would love to think that I would do, I'd hate not to do any more. It was ridiculous. We did one 4-parter. It was released, and it went to #1. And what do the BBC do? They wait 18 months or a year before they do another one. That's good thinking, isn't it? We do the other one. What happens to that 6-parter? They hold on to it for this time 18 months. The story being, I don't know how true, that with the new Doctor Who film coming out as it was then, that Steven Spielberg didn't want anything new on the market. Now, do you think Spielberg would worry about a 6-part radio? Please, you know? It doesn't make sense. Everything should support something else, you know. No one is, oh, it's us, not you. No, it should support the whole thing. So when it does finally come out, it goes to #1. And dear John, he said, well, Phil, he said, I would like to do some more before I'm under the sod. And there you go. He said, well, we did think we would do some more, but no one took it up at all. You see, the BBC say they don't know what to do with Doctor Who. They don't. How can you put things out a year, 18 months apart and expect to grab a new audience? We have the regulars and the fans like yourself, but there's a whole new audience out there. There is a place for Doctor Who. It hasn't found its slot. They should put it out like Tintin, wham, 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 one after the other. Tintin now has a whole new audience. Why couldn't they do that with Who? I don't know. I really don't understand that.
The broadcasting media has changed so enormously in the intervening years since
well, everything has, hasn't it, really? I mean, this is not the profession I joined in any shape or form.
As you suddenly say, you'll get phone calls to suddenly go up all the way up to Manchester just to record 2 lines for a commercial.
Yes, you have to have suitcase with travel very quickly. That's right, I did that in Stockport the other day. I did an advert. I'm going to do 3 more this year, till Christmas. And they wanted 2 words put on it, so I had to go all the way up to Stockport to do 2 words, and then back
go
again.
all the way home again?
Yeah. Well, I got paid, I'm not complaining, but, you know, I have other things in my life, you know, it's nice when it's more interesting, really.
What first tempted you into acting? I think one thing we don't know very much about is the fact that a little young lady from all the way from Liverpool suddenly decided to become an actress and go to London.
Well, I never sort of equated acting with going to London. I never really equated acting with being famous. I know that sounds, oh yes, she did. She didn't. I just wanted to do it. There was nothing else I ever wanted to do, from being a fairy at the bottom of the garden. I loved pretending. Very dangerous, really. It's amazing that I that I am an actress.
Well, you really...
I think. I don't know. I was very keen on ballet for a while, but it was much too hard work. And there was a drama school in Liverpool. And right up till I was in the lower 6th, my dad thought, if you do another year at school, okay, you can go to drama school. And I was with the youth theatre at the time. Wonderful people were there. We used to go up in the summer. How my parents ever let me go to London for 6 weeks at that age, I don't know. I wouldn't let my daughter. Oh, my God. I don't know how. I don't know how they did it. I really don't. When I think of that, maybe times were different. I don't know. And the big boys up there at the time was Simon Ward, Ken Cranham. I mean, Helen Mirren and I were up there. We were both court ladies together. We had a wonderful time. And then I came back. I went to drama school. And I think it never occurred to me to go to a London drama school. I was terribly provincial. I think I still am provincial, actually. I won't change now, not really. I feel very much at home in the provinces.
Not many people know that your very, very first appearance on screen was in a film in...
Are they going to know now, Jeremy?
Oh, I think a few.
Where did you get this one from?
You.
In one of my... Oh, right, okay. I can't complain then, can I? Well, I skived off school to do it, yes. It's your story, I'm not contributing at all.
I just want to know how you suddenly got embroiled into it.
Well, there was this film happening in Liverpool, and, you know, film stars don't really come to Liverpool. There's a wonderful book, Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, Gloria Graham. You must read it, it's very good. But at the time, it was the Mersey beat and everything, and Jerry and the Pacemakers. And they were doing a film called Ferry Across the Mersey. And my friends and I, who were going to drama school just on the Saturdays, we were doing a play in the open air. Oh, God. A Shakespeare at Hill Bark. And we really needed, you know, a bit of pocket money as well. And they were advertising for extras, really, to go on the ferry from morning till night and listen to Jerry Marsden sing. Well, the 3 of us, my friends, me, we got picked to do a little more, and the dog, than extraing. But hours back and forth on this bloody ferry, hours and hours. And we went to see ourselves in the cinema. And I nearly gave up there and then. These 3 awful, awful looking girls. I mean, there was, you know, we made ourselves up in the hair. We thought we looked wonderful. And Jerry, Fairy, and he'd troll around and he'd smile at one of us. And we just died in the cinema. We just, it's a wonder I ever took it up professionally. We crawled out, literally. Oh, it was so embarrassing. It was awful. Oh dear. So that was my first. I think we got paid. I think we got paid £8 for that. Or was it £8 a day? I forget. again.
A lot of money in 1964?
Was that the year? Thank you, Jeremy. I thought we glossed over that.
I think it'd be unfair not to throw it open to the audience at this point, because I'm sure there's a lot of people with some questions.
I think they're all asleep.
Possibly, we can possibly change the lighting somehow so we can see anyone who might have a hand.
It's very bright out there, actually. I've got this new mascara on. It's ever so heavy. I can hardly open my eyes.
Aha.
Oh!
You have lights coming up. Excellent.
It's graded, the lighting. Let these people be lit up a bit. I want to see them over there.
We have got an audience.
There. Yes, we have.
Okay, now, has anyone got a hand up who'd like to pass a question forward? A young lady in the front.
Barbie Lane and myself. I think we got, she was friends with a lot of designers, and I think that one was from Bus Stop, and we put the stars and stuff on. And, oh, Lenny Mayne loved it. God, blimey, he said. Are you acting with that, Tom? Did you like it? Yeah, I thought it was okay. It was very comfy, actually. I could wear lots of thermals under that. Normally, it was terribly difficult. And I remember them standing Terry Walsh up against me one time, and I had this tight jumper on, we were in Wookey Hole. I had to do this terrible thing. I would talk about the river and that. And the director said, well, would you like Terry to do it for you, Liz? And I sort of looked at him, and my nice cosy, I thought, well, no, he'll stretch it for the studio. So I said, no, I won't. But I liked that one, yeah.
And do we have any others? I'm trying to see around the audience at this point. Yes, there's a gentleman in the middle.
Do you have a favourite scene in Doctor Who?
Do you have a favourite scene?
I love the exchanges. I used to I didn't realise it till I watched it, I used to make little noises after a line or something. Sometimes I used to comment. And as I got used to Sarah, and as you get used to a role, you become more confident. It's in life with anything. And then you dare to do things that maybe you think, oh, I won't do that, that's silly. And if you do it, maybe you're wrong 3 times, but the once that you're right, it lifts the scene, you know, it makes it really different and good. And I can remember on Hand of Fear, and Tom used to take these things up beautifully. He was always open to little bits of personal business. And I think we walk into a control room when it's all over, when it's all happy, and I say something like, Eldrad must live. What are you going to say? Just checking. And that was a little... I love things like that. Story I like, I love Planet of Evil, because I love working at Ealing Studios. It was so wonderful to be part of where, you know, all those wonderful films had been. And also it was the first time we landed on a planet that at least had some semblance of lushness. You know, I was always on a rubbish dump or a sand pit or a quarry, and all around me, you know, was this, I mean, it was evil, but well, I had enjoyed that one.
Who were the co-stars? You mentioned Bernard Archer as one.
That was
such a magnificent...
We had Richard...
Tony Beckley and people...
Oh, lovely Tony Beckley. We had... We had Mark Jones, Scorbs. Who was Scorbs? I was calling Scorbs. He was in Fools and Horses.
John Challis.
John Challis. See sometimes now. David Dacre. June Brown, in my first one, who I met. She did a play recently. My husband and her, they did a play at Richmond. Orange Tree together. Can't think.
Jeremy Wilkin and people like that.
Who?
Jeremy Wilkin, Revenge of the Cybermen.
Oh gosh, yes.
John Woodnutt in the Cybermen.
John Woodnutt, take me to the controls. My feelers need the controls. He was really cheeky. Oh, and lovely Peter Miles. Jimmy Garbett. I had such fun. Really had enormous fun on that programme.
Now, when you left the series, of course, they gave you a send-off on Nationwide. And you mentioned there that one of the reasons you're leaving is your ankles have become quite dicky.
Well, I was only told about that. And they could have given a fella to interview me. I think I had Sue Lawley, didn't I?
Something like that.
And I'd just done the radio. No, not the radio, the record. And I was literally whisked straight in, you know, and do it. And then my agent got a call, and this guy said, well, she could have mentioned the record. I thought, bloody hell, I only had time to put my knickers on, you know. Give me a break. But as I say, I never handled that side terribly well. And I left Doctor Who. I had nothing to go to, but I'd had enough. As I said before, going back, I loved my character as Sarah. And all of a sudden, I realised I'd been Barry's choice, and Philip Hinchcliffe had inherited me. And he'd always been so complimentary he was lovely to me. But I knew the time would come, as the producer, he would want to choose his own girl. And I don't know, I just had a feeling. I thought, I think it's really time to go. And it would have been so awful for me personally. I really, really would have been so upset to be asked to leave. And I don't know how they go about that. I mean, I know how John left. John never wanted to leave, really. I mean, it was... I knew he was leaving when I joined the programme. And he told me, he said, I realised how popular the programme was, Liz, and I went to the powers that be and said, right, we're starting a new series. I think I could have a little more remuneration. And they said no. And he said they didn't even say, well, we'll think about it. They just said no. And John said, I was sort of left there like a lemon. So I said, right, I'll go. Just on the spur of the moment. He had no intention of doing that at all. No intention at all. And he said, I walked out the room and I realised I'd said it, I'd done it. And he said there was no going back. But I just had to leave. I felt there was no more. And I knew Sarah, I did know by then that it was popular. I knew through Philip Hinchcliffe. He'd call us in the office and he'd show us the viewing figures. And even he'd nearly be dancing on the desk. He used to think, oh, isn't he sweet? And go back to it. We didn't realise. And we were going down the motorway one day, and Tom, and it really brought it home. He said, do you know, Liz? What did he say, Elizabeth? I don't know. He said we could stop at any house on the way. We could knock on the door. It was about the time when Doctor Who was on, at 6 o'clock at night, and we were going down for the next day to film on a new location. And he said, I could knock on any door and say, excuse me, I'm the Doctor. Can I come in and watch myself? And he said, I bet you... Everyone said, oh, come in, Doctor. Sit down, cup of tea. And he'd had that feeling about it. And I just thought, I really want to go while she's popular. That really... My mum said, oh, no, don't leave. Oh, you mustn't leave, Liz. And it meant a lot to me that I did it on my terms, that I went. And then I went back to Liverpool and I did some plays and I did some series. But
it's quite a sea change, though, going into suddenly working in a children's programme. You mentioned going onto the oil rigs as part of...
Oh, yes, that was the first thing I did. So, yes, I then did 2 plays. Yeah, I mean, it's all right. I mean, acting is acting. I like the variation. And also, I think I would have got very stale in Who. I think there was nowhere else I could take it as Sarah. I think the only thing I'm so sorry for that never, ever happened to her, I never did a pearl white. I never got tied to the railway line. And I would have really... I mean, I don't know why they didn't think of that. I would really have liked that. The pearl white situation.
What was your favourite role after leaving Doctor Who?
Oh, Jeremy.
What did you really
Gordon Bennett.
doing?
I was very proud of the dress rehearsal rather than the recording of A Play for Today with Richard O'Callaghan. Pauline Quirk was in it. I can't even remember what it was called. It was about a woman whose husband goes into... He checks himself into a mental asylum just because he feels run down and then you don't realise 2 people have to sign you out and the doctors wouldn't sign him out. I didn't realise when I was doing it was a comedy. I was totally on my own. I got this letter from the director. It must have been so hard for you, Liz, when everyone else was being funny. It meant a lot to you. Yes, I was very proud of that. And I loved doing The Land of Flimlap for Barry and Gulliver. I enjoyed that.
That was a very largesque role,
wasn't it? Oh, it was
wasn't
wonderful, yeah. And it is wonderful to work for directors and writers. It very rarely comes along who you just might think you can do it. You know, we're all desperate for approval and we want to do well. I mean, and you lay yourself on the line as an actor every time. It's like starting a new school, you know, every time you go for a job. You know, you start down at the bottom then. And Barry, for me, he has such... Really, I can't be serious enough. There's such integrity as a person, and it comes through his work. Has an awful temper, though. Oh, gosh.
Really? You never think of Barry as having a temper, do you?
Oh, yes. But it's all right, because it's all to do with why isn't it right. It's never... You see, some directors take it on a very personal level. You do have directors who do have a whipping boy. They do pick on various people. I've been there. It's soul-destroying. It's terrible. But I was so fortunate. But then you see, if you're second lead in a popular series, you know, people are going to be nice to you, really, aren't they? I was very fortunate to ever have been in that position. Lots of actors haven't. I was extremely well looked after, from stuntmen, everyone. They looked out for me because there were very few girls on the programme. And I played up to it unashamedly. I mean, why not?
Yes, very often. You could be the only female in the entire episode cast, couldn't you? And do any other questions out here for Elizabeth? There's a person right at the back there.
What do you think it was about
Yes, why have you never been superseded?
I wonder if it was the doctors I had, that thing about gelling. You know, it's not just her, it's more than that, it's a two-way thing. I was incredibly lucky that I got on so well with John and with Tom. And I'm sure a lot of it is luck. I don't know, there are various... I was trying to think how to play Sarah. I'd never played a character before that you read on the script. It said, "Enter Sarah Jane." And I went, yes, yes. Yeah. And that's all it said about her. And I've been used to doing things where Sally Ann enters. She's 25 years old. She has a slight limp. Her father beats her at night. You know, you got the whole scenario. Enter Sarah Jane. Bloody hell, what do I do with this? But that's where James and Barry helped me so much. They saw something in me, maybe, that, or Barry did, that they wanted for Sarah. And I saw something in my 8-year-old cousin that I wanted for Sarah. I thought, how do I make this person believable? Because it isn't really an unbelievable situation, suspending belief of falling down a hole every week. You know, she could be really stupid on one hand, couldn't she? Well, you've made this mistake once, Sarah. Why are you doing it again? You know there's a monster around the corner. God, haven't you learnt, girl? And I watched my 8-year-old cousin. It was quite by chance. And children of that age, 8 to 10, they have a great feeling of what is not fair. And they are very, very honest. And they wouldn't say in a very mardy way, "Oh, that's not fair." They say, "That's not fair. That's really not fair." And it means so much to them. And there was the kind of innocence about that, because it's about heroes, Doctor Who. Good has to triumph. So you are actually dealing with someone who you think is quite a wonderful person, like a best friend. Now, you have best friends, you have people you're all fond of. I'm sure there's someone in everyone's life that they would do anything for. You would make yourself look stupid for that person, because however you feel about them. And I reasoned that with Sarah. It didn't matter how many times she made mistakes, because she was doing it with the right heart, that this gutsy thing of trying. So maybe people kind of, it's something I empathise with. I still believe it's terribly naive that good will triumph. We all know good doesn't. It really doesn't. But I think it's very wrong to lose sight of that. And especially in the world as it is today. And I kind of looked at it that way.
Well, I think everyone would like to join me in basically saying thank you to Elisabeth for the enormous popularity and longevity of this festival. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.